Hey, Bassish B up for 64K and welcome to another episode of the New Retro. So if you've never watched this show before, I take a look at a new game for an old system. I also take a look at the inspiration game, the game that might have inspired this new incarnation. And today's games are... Okay, so let's first take a look at the possible inspiration game.
First, we'll take a look at a game called Rogue, designed by Michael Toy, Glenn Wichman, and Ken Arnold, released in 1980 for the Unix mainframe computer as a piece of public domain software, very similar in the way that the Oregon Trail was released in the early 70s. The game itself was the beginning of a whole subgenre of games called roguelike, and this game is the like in that sentence. The reference would only come along decades later, but the game pioneered all the tropes of these styles of games. Your character has to make his way down a series of randomized dungeon levels, looting for treasure, weapons, and items, with the ultimate goal to retrieve the Amulet of Yendor on the last floor. The game looked pretty primitive even then with its ASCII graphics, but college students were addicted to the game and couldn't get enough of it as it spread between campuses. The tropes it brought were randomized levels, making each playthrough unique, turn-based moves, meaning you could take as long or as short as you wanted, making your next move, and of course that leads to permadeath. No matter how far you got or how long it took, death means your character was gone for good, and this was one of the main reasons why the game was made turn-based, so you could plan carefully and think about all your moves. The game's popularity, especially on college campuses in California, got a major boost in 1983 when Rogue was included in the BSD Unix operating system for many of the campuses around California, thus giving access to the game to even more people at the time. It wasn't until 1984 though that the game would finally get its first of many commercial releases, with the conversions done by two of the original creators, Toy and Wichman, with John Lane joining under the label AR Designs and being supported and distributed by Epix. The DOS version you see here was one of the first releases, as well as the Amiga and Atari ST ports that followed over the next few years. Later in 1988, Mastertronic, under their MAD label, released a bunch of 8-bit ports as well, including the Amstrad, C64, Spectrum, and Atari 8-bit versions. The game has always been very simple and basic, while bringing many new ideas to the RPG adventure genre that's still being implemented in roguelike games to this day.
And now let's check out the new game.
And we now jump to 2019 with the release of Trogue64, Drain of Doom on Commodore 64. This game is an absolute love letter to the classic 80s rogue game, but also bringing its own unique elements to the mix. The backstory is there was a zombie outbreak in the 80s in a small town, but the residents were able to lead the slow-moving horde down to the bottom of an abandoned mine, and then flooded it. Unfortunately, the Trogue, or drain in a sense, has been removed, causing the mine to drain. Your character starts at the bottom floor and you need to work your way up all 64 levels to the surface, all the while activating the 8 pumps spread throughout to refill the mine. All the classic roguelike elements are here. Looting for equipment, battling creatures like skeletons, toads, slime, etc. Turn-based moves, randomized levels, and of course, permadeath. This game is extremely addictive and feels very modern even though it looks extremely retro. I love the fact that you also have to use the keyboard to play it, just like with the original Rogue. The game was programmed and designed by Wolfgang Botcher, who used to run a number of BBSs in the 1980s. He's got his own website here, which I'll leave a link to in the description, and you can read up on all his latest Commodore 64 projects. The music in this game is fantastic as well, and is done by TDM of the C64 demo group Triad, and is a great atmospheric SID tune. The best part of everything here is that the game is free, so check out csdb.dk. I'll leave a link in the description so you can download it, and it plays perfectly on a real C64 through VAS and on the C64 Mini, although I'd highly recommend plugging in a keyboard obviously for the controls. It's a great game in a classic style, so be sure to check it out.
And thanks for joining me, Bassish B at 64K. I hope you had a good time. If you can like and subscribe, that'll be greatly appreciated, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.